So thank you everybody for your time, and thank you Jordan for giving me the opportunity. My name is Alexander Bondros, and according to the Church of Scientology, I'm an anti-religious bigot and hate speech propagator who has been waging a personal vendetta for profit against the Church of Scientology since December 2022. That's a quote from my hate website, who is alexbondros.org, which makes no secret about who's behind it. As you can see there, it says Church Statement from the Church of Scientology International. I'm a firm believer in people's right to freedom of belief, and I'm not here to denounce or criticise those who choose to be members of the Church of Scientology. But what I have a problem with is its behaviours, the behaviours that the Church engages in, such as forced abortions, familial disconnection, hard manual labour, physical beatings and intimidation, slave labour, and of course their efforts to harass and silence critics and former members who've decided to speak out. We're not talking about a few isolated incidents or certain specific people or groups engaging in wrongdoing. This is a systemic issue that is worldwide, and I'm yet to speak to a single ex-Scientologist who has not been abused in some way, shape or form. I joined Scientology at the age of 15 and quickly rose the ranks to become the director of public book sales at the Church of Scientology in London. They have two properties, one near Blackfriars and another on Tottenham Court Road. As a teenager, I was forcibly held against my will, and since speaking out, I've been the victim of a targeted and sustained campaign of harassment, which is still ongoing and is being investigated by the Metropolitan Police. Scientology was founded in the 1950s by failed science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard, and although many people have heard about its wacky space alien beliefs and celebrity followers like Jordan mentioned, such as Tom Cruise, what people don't realise is the abusive practices the church itself engages in, which harms both its existing members and those who choose to leave. Before his death in 1986, L. Ron Hubbard was found guilty of fraud in France, and in the 1990s, American Express blacklisted Scientology due to concerns over financial misconduct. More recently, Chase Bank have decided to reject transactions at Scientology properties worldwide after it found parishioners were being coerced into taking out loans and maxing out credit cards in order to pay for courses. And in the 1980s, 11 senior executives, including Hubbard's own wife, Mary Sue, served time in prison after it was found Scientology had placed an estimated 5,000 undercover agents in various government agencies across the globe and tasked them with stealing, copying and destroying documents that didn't align with their values. To this day, it stands as the largest known infiltration of the US government in its history, and it was orchestrated by Scientology's UK headquarters in Sussex, which is known as St. Hill. Nonetheless, Scientology has managed to largely escape scrutiny here in the UK due to its complex legal structure, litigious nature, and reputation for harassing critics. For tax reasons, Scientology operates in the UK through an Australian-registered non-profit called COSRECI, which stands for the Church of Scientology Religious Education College Incorporated. What a mouthful. Although it follows orders from its headquarters over in the USA. This means that as an overseas entity, UK authorities are reluctant to investigate and often find it difficult to hold them to account, and I have been told by officials from various agencies that it's just not in their jurisdiction. Due to not having charity status in the UK, Scientology are liable for corporation tax on its profits, but its accounts show that every year they borrow vast quantities of wealth from their US counterparts in the form of loans, repayable with interest, so as to minimise its profits and thus escape paying tax. Their current intra-company debt stands at around $100 million, and that's just the UK alone. Now let's take a look at some of the history of Scientology in the UK. In 1971, the government launched an inquiry into Scientology, which found its practices amount to psychotherapy and should therefore be regulated. That was the Foster Report in 1971. In 1984, High Court Judge Lord Justice Leahy found that Scientology is a harmful, dangerous organisation that is out to capture people, especially impressionable young children. And in 1999, the Charity Commission rejected Scientology after it found that it does not benefit the public. Nonetheless, they've continued to operate, largely unchanged since they first set up shop here in 1959. At its core, Scientology is a totalitarian extremist belief system with the goal of quite literally taking over the government. Those who speak out against it are declared suppressive people, or SPs for short, and here are some of Scientology's policies on such people. Rights of a suppressive person or group. A truly suppressive person or group has no rights of any kind, and any actions taken against them are not punishable, and by that Hubbard means within Scientology's internal ethics system. And this is a policy letter which is still in force today, where those who are deemed enemies are declared suppressive people. Fair game may be deprived of property or injured by any means by any Scientologist without any discipline of the Scientologist, may be tricked, sued, lied to, or destroyed. This fair game harassment is well documented and, for example, was covered recently by The Observer after Scientology engaged in a prolific campaign of online attacks against me and other fellow activists. In recent weeks, this has escalated to Scientology contacting members of my family, and just the other day, my employer and several business contacts have received letters like this one, attempting to get me sacked for my efforts to provide a voice to fellow survivors of abuse and raise awareness of Scientology's abusive practices. These attacks are orchestrated by Scientology's Office of Special Affairs, or OSA for short, and their goal is to silence critics and infiltrate government through a policy called safe pointing, which directs members to build relationships with government officials in order to claim legitimacy through any means possible. Their actions are dictated by policy letters written by Hubbard, and I wanted to share some more of those with you today. This is an OSA network order which says no government bum ever acts on his own initiative. Governments today are simply like prostitutes. They are used. A nation or state runs on the ability of its department heads, its governors, or any other leaders. It is easy to get posts, meaning jobs, in such areas unless one has delusions of grandeur or fear of it. Don't bother to get elected. Get a job on the secretarial staff or the bodyguard. Use any talent one has to get a place close in and go to work. The object of the department is to broaden the impact of Scientology upon governments and other organisations, and is to conduct itself so as to make the name and repute of Scientology better and more forceful. And finally, the goal of the department is to bring the government and hostile philosophies or societies into a state of complete compliance with the goals of Scientology. This is done by high-level ability to control, and in its absence by low-level ability to overwhelm. Introvert such agencies, control such agencies. So it's no secret what Scientology's motives are here. These are all policy letters that are freely available if you were to walk into any Church of Scientology in the world. In order to do this, Scientology control a number of front groups such as Narconon, the drug rehabilitation program, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, which seeks to destroy psychiatry, and Criminon, a criminal reform program. Criminon is currently in prisons up and down the country and has received donations from the Prince's Trust and other respected charitable organisations, all of which have said they would never have donated if they'd have known of the group's ties to Scientology. Scientology has also established close ties with East Grinstead Town Council, where its headquarters are located, and any effort to question them about it has been censored from the minutes and recordings of public meetings. I'm going to just play a very short video clip. I hope the sound works, but please shout if you can't hear it.
My name is Stephen Jones. I live in East Grinstead. So this does relate to item 6, disposing of outstanding business, because it has been raised before. So my question is, would the mayor consider meeting with myself?
So you can see this member of the public, who's an ex-Scientologist, literally was bleeped out of the recording. The local mayor has also been seen standing on stage at Scientology events accepting a £50,000 charity cheque, and several local councillors feature in propaganda videos talking about their close relationship with the so-called church. And here is an example of one of those videos.
I've been involved with St Hill, and I've been up here quite often. I've learned what Scientology do. This pandemic, it's been quite devastating for our communities. And St Hill have been out there sanitising our play parks, sanitising some of our buildings, making our communities safe. It's absolutely marvellous what they do and are very much part of this community. So that just goes to show exactly what St Hill is all about, and what Scientology is about. It's open to everyone, and I think that's testament to yourselves and the amount of general public that flock up.
Now, I have no problem with Scientology offering community support and sanitising buildings during the pandemic and offering help in the community. That's absolutely fantastic. But it's important to understand the motives behind it. And the reason these things happen is not because Scientology wants to help the community, but it's because it wants to build relationships with local officials so that they look the other way when people like myself call them out for their abusive practices. And it's all dictated by policies that have been written by L. Ron Hubbard and are in force today in Scientology. Last year, Scientology asked Mid-Sussex District Council to impose a public spaces protection order around its St Hill headquarters in an attempt to censor those speaking out against its abuses. In order for a PSPO to be put in place, there needs to be clear evidence of persistent, ongoing disruption to the local community, but there have only been 2 protests in the last 6 years, both of which were peaceful with no arrests, warnings or police cautions, but nonetheless it hasn't stopped Scientology from doing whatever they can to shut anybody down who speaks out against it. Mid-Sussex District Council are currently reviewing their request, and we expect a decision by the summer. As mentioned earlier, Scientology is at its core an extremist totalitarian belief system. It's extremist because it teaches you that you have to follow Hubbard's policies word for word. There is no room for different interpretations, and it's totalitarian because it's positioned as the only solution to mankind's problems. In keeping Scientology working, one of the most important policy letters in the church, which precedes every single course on their so-called Bridge to Total Freedom, Hubbard says that Scientology will work 100% of the time if applied 100% correctly. The only reason Scientology doesn't work is because it's not been delivered correctly. And this mindset is dangerous because it conditions you to believe that Hubbard is an omniscient figure, and if you just do what he says, it'll all be okay. It's not total freedom, but it's total conformity, total control, and for many, it's total bankruptcy. But at the beginning, Scientology is presented as empowering. Let's take the concept of a thetan, for example, which is Scientology's word for spiritual being. If you're a spiritual being, a thetan with more power, control, and ability than you could ever imagine, that sounds like a wonderful idea that might embolden you to take charge of your life and work towards a better existence. Great. But what that translates to is horrific treatment of victims of abuse. If, for example, as my friend Danielle Chamberlain was, you are raped as a teenager at Scientology's UK headquarters, you are not provided sympathy, care, or compassion. You are asked, what did you do to pull that in? Because as a spiritual being, you've done something to put yourself in a situation where you've allowed that to happen to yourself. If you are in a horrific car accident and end up in a wheelchair, or even if you're born with a disability, you are considered in Scientology to be a degraded being, because as a spiritual being, you've chosen a body that doesn't function as it should, in their words. And the only reason a thetan would do that is if they've committed such horrific crimes in a past life that they've decided to punish themselves by making what they describe as poor life choices. It's nothing short of disgusting, and Scientology's statement to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse in 2019 admits to this practice of victim shaming and to its knowledge of cases of abuse within its walls. However, as survivors, we have found it incredibly difficult to call on government and law enforcement to take action. The proposed amendments to coercive control legislation is a great start that will enable us to seek justice. But there also needs to be greater awareness of Scientology's practices across all government departments, and I would be more than happy to speak to anybody who is willing to help us find our voice. At the upper levels of Scientology management, known as the C Organisation, or Sea Org for short, members are asked to sign $1 billion-a-year contracts dedicating their life and all future lives to working for the church. These people work 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week with no time off, and are paid a weekly stipend of just £50. They are provided accommodation, often 6 or more people in a room with bunk beds, and every aspect of their lives is controlled. They are transported from their berthing to the St Hill compound where they work, and with the exception of a handful of public-facing staff, they are not permitted to own mobile phones, access the internet, or to leave the property unaccompanied. Their access to mental health services and other outside support is strictly forbidden, and they are threatened with losing everybody they love and everybody they've ever known if they were to dare speak out or report any Scientologists to law enforcement. They are also punished physically on many occasions. People have attested to that happening to them. They can be moved to any other Scientology base on the planet with less than 24 hours notice, and despite police and government being aware of this fact since the Sea Org's inception in the 1960s, nothing has been done about it, and it continues to operate unchallenged to this day. Now I'd like to bring my very brief talk to a close with a short video and a statement from Scientology's former spokesperson Mike Rinder, which he recorded before he passed away for me to share with the National Working Group and officials here in the UK.
Hip, hip, cheerio! Scientology's got to go! Hip, hip, cheerio! Scientology's got to go! The abuse has to stop! The abuse has to stop!
Men stämningen är god. De håller modet uppe, de här demonstranterna. De har marscherat tidigare idag, så de får ställa sig.
Hip, hip, cheerio! Scientology's got to go! Hip, hip, cheerio! Hip, hip, cheerio! The abuse has to stop!
The one pushing him into the road, mate.
Can he be gotten off our property?
The abuse has to stop!
This is not touch me. Please don't. Do not. I have a right to touch you on the property. Do not. I'm not on the property.
The abuse has to stop! The abuse has to stop!
There is human trafficking occurring on that property at St. Hill at this very moment, and it will continue until government agencies step in to stop it. Sea Organization, members of Scientology, are victims of human trafficking. They are being held in circumstances where they are cut off from the outside world. These people are right there at St. Hill right now.
Thank you very much.